everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Fearcast. This is the podcast dedicated to OCD and anxiety spectrum disorders and getting your life back. I'm your host, Kevin Foss, and I'm a licensed therapist specializing in OCD and anxiety disorders. And thank you all so much for joining me for today's episode. This is what I've been stressing out about lately. Actually, no, before I even get into that, for those of you who are new, it's a question and answer based podcast. If you have a question about OCD and anxiety treatment, or how to help your friend or your cousin or your mom or your kid or something like that, or you have questions about phobias or generalized anxiety, I want to hear about it. We all want to hear about it. Send me a question over at fearcastpodcast.com. You can send me an audio question, which bumps to the top of the list of questions, and you can do that over at Fearcast Podcast by sending me the link to a recorded message. You can email me the audio to questions at fearcastpodcast.com. You can send it over at Instagram. I'm Fearcast Podcast over there. I'm not as active as I should be. I really should be up there more often, but there's a lot of people up there, and I should myself. Anyways, it's a separate conversation, but I have a bunch of questions for today, and a bunch of questions. I'm going to answer one question and share what they label as a success story. So, and to that end, if you have a success story, we want to hear about it. We want to know all about what's working, what's not working. Oh, I forgot to turn my light on. For those of you who are listening on the for just listening for the podcast, it doesn't matter to you, but for those of you who are watching over at YouTube, and by the way, that's my stress. For those of you who have known, I'm trying to put this up on Instagram. I'm trying to put this up on YouTube more often. If people want the visual component to it as well, you can go check me out over at YouTube at Fearcast Podcast at the YouTubes. My recording system just doesn't work. It is so stressful. I've read the things. I've tried to do the software. I've done all the updates. I'm hoping it's going to work. You don't even know the array of cameras. I'm recording with 3 cameras just because I want it to work, and I'm hoping it works today. So we'll see how it goes. Anyways, let's stop wasting time. Let's get to it. So the first one, the success story comes from Eden. So Eden messaged me and wanted to share a little bit about their experience with Casadastraphobia. Now, for those of you who have never heard that term before, that is a phobia, and it can be a little varied in the experience of what it really means. So for some folks, it can be a fear about being in wide open spaces. For some people, it can be this fear of getting sucked up into the sky. For some people, it can be a fear of kind of looking up and developing this just really unwanted, uncomfortable physical sensation. It can be experienced in a lot of different ways, and the Casadastraphobia community has, it varies. I did a episode somewhere in the middle of the plague. I did a Phobia Friday series, and I covered Casadastraphobia on that. So I assume that's where this is coming from. But if you'd want to know more about that phobia, go check out that episode. Just Google Phobia Friday. Friday is spelled with a PH because phobia. Anyways, you get the idea. So go check it out. If you can successfully spell Casadastraphobia the first time, good on you. All right, so here's what Eden has to say. So Eden says, when it comes to Casadastraphobia, I tend to experience this in the car and couldn't find a name or meaning. When I drive on an 8-lane highway at night and am more dissociated than day. It's that day. Anyways, I'll edit this. Than day, and am overstimulated. I feel like I'm just gonna get sucked back and up. My OCD tends to kick in on drives. My desire to discover things. My impulse to pull up at random places and houses. My dissection and analyzation of a conversation I had at work. It's like a replay. That's why I hate traffic, because it feels like whatever progress I've made on the road is going to get absorbed, and then I get claustrophobic and being sandwiched between them. I often look up because I love the sky, and sometimes it feels like I'm getting closer to it on a pillar. However, I'm not afraid of it while driving. He says, I don't know, I just found it interesting and thought I'd comment. I also get this on hills and having to stop at the light and feel like I'm falling back in my body, even though the car isn't moving. I don't know what phobia this would be. Casadastraphobia, we just talked about that. I don't know if phobia this would be, or if it could just be my dissociative, disproportionate proprioception. I've always felt scared, or I've always felt strange looking through floors into blackness, and have had dreams about falling seemingly forever into darkness in slow motion by this force stronger than my body. So, Eden, thanks so much for sharing your experience. These are just kind of, what I love about this is it kind of shares, like, these are some of those feelings and some experiences that a lot of folks just don't share with other people. Like, we're not going to talk about it because we're afraid other people are going to think we're crazy. They're not going to understand what's going on. Why would I share this with people? I'm just going to keep this tucked in. I'm not going to talk about it ever with anybody ever. And the reality is, Eden, other people are experiencing this, and I'm getting this message because I shared a phobia and other people's experiences of this. This is what I love about this podcast, is that we can hear different stories and hear different experiences of the same thing, and experiences of what living life is. And there are going to be elements of it that are going to resonate with people, other elements that won't. But you hear stories like this, and yes, these are ways that people can experience this sort of phobia, ways that they can experience life. Now, there are different things certainly that you can, I would say, I mean, you didn't ask a question in this, you didn't share, what you have been doing to work on this. There's certainly things that you can do to help with this, and I'm a huge fan of exposure and response prevention, to no surprise. And I think that can be really helpful in terms of being used to, or getting practiced, giving yourself that permission to go into those experiences and to do the uncomfortable things, so that you can show your body that, this isn't a danger. You can show your brain that this is a scenario that doesn't require, a feared fight or flight response to it. And we learn that, we show our brain those realities by doing that thing over and over and over again. And that may be, for Eden, for you to be intentional about driving on an 8-lane highway at night and just saying, all right, for this week, every day, if you have the ability to do so, you're going to drive at night, and you're going to let yourself feel that discomfort, and you're going to have that confidence that you can do this. You can have that feeling, and that feeling will come, and that feeling will go. And that, that dissociation might show up, which is another unwanted feeling state. A lot of people would kind of label that as more dangerous or bothersome or worrisome than others. But we're kind of saying this is my reaction to this. And we can show ourselves, because rationally speaking, you might say, this doesn't make any stinking sense. Why do I feel this way? But, maybe not but, maybe it's more of an and. And it doesn't make sense, so you're going to treat it as if it doesn't. And you're going to go, and you're going to try it, and you're going to notice it. Now, of course, scripting can be helpful with this, if that's, if there's a fear associated with this about, going up into the sky. You kind of talked about, like, getting closer to the sky on a pillar. Is there fear associated with that, or is it just more of your experience that feels kind of odd? But either way, I wanted to just share that story, and just, Eden, thank you so much for sharing that. And if you, other listeners out there, also have a similar experience to this, send it in. We'd love to hear what it's like. I would love to hear about what you've done to try to work on it, to help with it. And I'll be more than happy to share those on a future episode. So why don't I get off to the next question? So this is Nicholas's question. They sent in their question about sensorimotor OCD. So let me just read this real quick. They say, hello, I'm writing to get some advice regarding my sensorimotor OCD. Before I had sensorimotor OCD, I first had harm OCD 2 years ago, around when I turned 18. OCD was very new to me, and it rapidly developed over the span of a week or two. With support from my therapist, psychiatrist, and my family, I learned to live with my harm OCD and wasn't fazed as much by my daily intrusive thoughts. I found my current therapist at the Portland Anxiety Center, thanks to you, as my mom stumbled upon your website a few years ago and reached out. This September, my harm OCD largely morphed into sensorimotor OCD. And I get this weird physical sensation in my breathing, where my breathing gets, uncomfortably shallow and feels less automatic. I also get pins and needles feeling in my windpipe, and these physical sensations cause me tons of anxiety. The physical sensations happen randomly. They say kind of a few times per week, and there isn't a specific trigger besides anxiety. I've met a bunch with my therapist and psychiatrist, but I'm still struggling with my sensorimotor OCD. So I figured I'd ask for some advice. Here's my question. Can I learn to live with the physical sensations and take the power or intensity away from them? The physical sensations are so unpleasant when they occur, and I'm so drained by the time they fade away. I meditate or do some breath work when they get bad, but even then, they last for an hour or so. So awesome. Well, Nicholas, thank you so much for sending that in. So we've talked about sensorimotor OCD on this podcast a lot. So there's going to be a ton of episodes for those of you who are new. Sensorimotor is a subtype of obsessive compulsive disorder, where someone pays excessive attention to a physical function, a physical sensation. It can be related to. It's kind of I talk about it as there is hyper-awareness obsessions, and then there is sensorimotor, which is kind of under the umbrella of hyper-awareness. Hyper-awareness is just being overly aware of something. Hyper-awareness can be over-awareness of your thoughts, over-awareness of a sound, over-awareness of like colors or things that are around. Sensorimotor is kind of similar to that, but it's focused really on the body, bodily sensations, and bodily functions. So breathing, blinking, heart rate, physical sensations in your body, tinnitus, however you want to pronounce it, a lot of other things. So Nicholas is hyper aware about the feeling in their throat, and also feeling in their throat and kind of breathing that gets uncomfortably shallow and feels less automatic. So those can kind of be two different things. So obviously with sensorimotor, when I'm working with someone with sensorimotor, I want to find out what's the feared story. What is so dangerous? What is so bad about this awareness, right? Our body has sensations going on all the time. Our brain just doesn't focus on every little thing all the time because it's got other things to do, other sensations, and it would be just simply overwhelming to be aware of everything that's happening all the time. Sometimes our brain is going to, suddenly notice that itch on the back of our head, or that feeling on the side of your mouth, or all of a sudden your ankle itches for no stinking reason. And there are going to be other times, and for other folks with different subtypes of OCD, where it's going to hyper focus on different parts of the body, right? Groinal sensations is a really, is a great example of this, is that folks will be hyper aware of the sensations in their groin. Oftentimes that's going to be associated with more of the taboo subject. So sexual orientation OCD, POCD, that sort of stuff. And about I feel this sensation in my groin. Well, what does that sensation mean, right? This is where you're using your analytical mindset and not your observational mindset. Observational mindset just simply notices that sensation is happening. The analytical mindset says, why? Why is it happening? What does it mean for me? What does it say about me? What's going to happen? How do I get rid of it? Should I get rid of it? Is it bad? Is it good, right? It asks all those questions. Now, with those sensations, now, by the way, as I mentioned your groin, I'm wondering if listeners out there are now aware of their groin and the sensation. Now, by the way, that sensation was happening before. It's going to come and it's going to go, but we have sensations everywhere. If you think about your scalp, you might notice sensations there. If you think about your feet, you'll probably now start to notice some sensations there that weren't part of your awareness before, but now they are because you turned your attention towards them. We could do this with every other part of your body. With hyper-awareness and sensorimotor, these sensations and kind of a cluster of sensations or functions, etc., become more of a focus, become overwhelming, right? They become an obsession. Sometimes the story for this fear is, well, what if this never goes away? Then what? What if I have this sensation and it's going to distract me from work and from school and from relationships? I'm never going to be present because I'm constantly focused on this thing. What if I'm never going to be back to normal? Right? And all of that can be very scary, and existentially, I suppose it is, but the reality is that it goes away and it comes back and it goes away and it comes back. And we're likely to be experiencing it more when we are paying more attention to it. It's kind of like, I kind of think about it as the more you're focusing on it, the more you're trying to get rid of it, the more you're essentially just pressing the refresh button on it and ensuring that you are noticing it, ensuring that you are thinking about it, because you're thinking about it. And even when you're trying to then get rid of something or get rid of a sensation or an awareness, that can even make it worse, because now you're hyper-focusing on something that you know that you hate and you want to try to crush it, but you're just holding it right here, right in front of your face the whole time, and you're wondering why it's not going away. All right. So a traditional way that a lot of folks go about trying to get rid of or trying to treat sensorimotor, and understandably, is through the habituation model, right? We've talked about exposure and response prevention a lot on this, and it's that idea that we're going to get closer and closer to the fear that you have, closer and closer to the thing that's scary, and then resisting compulsive behaviors, and your body will learn to habituate to the anxiety, learn to habituate to the stressors and feelings that come up in that certain situation, right? That's the idea. Now, there's a lot of shifts that have been happening in the discussion of OCD treatment, and the habituation model has become less in vogue. The habituation model gets muddled in sensorimotor because we sometimes think, well, what I need to do is expose myself to the thing that's bugging me. And ostensibly with sensorimotor, it is, and for you, Nicholas, it's that feeling in your throat or that shallow breathing. So how do we get used to the feeling of the shallow breathing, the shallow breathing or the feeling in your throat? Well, you are noticing it. You are feeling it. And a lot of folks will then say, I am noticing it, and I'm not habituating to it because it just still is bothersome. And I'm going to say, yes, it is still bothersome, because I think the shift needs to happen away from habituating to the sensation and instead to habituating, getting used to, or disproving, I'd say, disconfirming the fear. Because the fear isn't the sensation. The feared story is, well, what if this feeling never goes away? What if I'm constantly focused on this forever? What if it's going to impact everything that I do and I'm never going to be able to be present again, right? That is our target, not the sensation itself. Because again, we've got sensations all the time. We've got things going on in our body, we've got things going on around us. So we're going to be distracted by a lot of stuff. I'm willing to bet, as you're listening to this podcast, as you're watching me, if you're on YouTube, talk about this stuff, you're getting distracted by other things, right? If you're on YouTube, there are ads over there for other things. If you are driving, you got other things you're seeing and noticing. If you're at the gym, you got other people. You're looking at that person who's wearing that thing. Why are they wearing that? They should be wearing more, or whatever it is, right? I don't know. Or they should not be wearing sweats in the middle of summer. I don't understand. I go to Disneyland and I see people on like 100-degree weather days, they're wearing sweatpants and a sweatshirt and like a beanie or something like that. I get it. You're looking cool. I don't know, but it sounds so uncomfortable. I'm sweating thinking about this person. Blah. Anyways, dress appropriately for the weather is what I'm trying to say for everybody out there. It's the dad moment of the day. All right. Where did I get off on? All right. So what we're trying to do then is to shift our focus not to the sensation, but instead to the story. We're learning that we can live with those sensations. We can make space for those sensations because they are there. They're part of your life, Nicholas. You do have that. You do get that shallow breathing sometimes. I, as someone who has respiratory problems, I get shallow breathing sometimes for a lot of different reasons, and I've figured out some different things that I can do to work on that. But that's part of our life, is that we're going to have those sensations. So then what do we do about them? And that's where I wonder if that's where you're getting kind of tripped up on. You said, where is it? The physical sensations are so unpleasant that when they occur, I am so drained by the time that they fade away. I'd ask, why are you so drained? What's so draining about it? When I hear that, when I read that, I assume it has something to do with the rumination and compulsive behavior, avoidance efforts, or other things that you're doing to try to eliminate the sensation itself, eliminate the focus on it, or trying to just balance all this and live your life and be present with that person you're talking to and have this feeling, and that can be all exhausting. So I'm wondering if that's what you mean by that when you say, I am so drained by the time, and you said it'll last like an hour or so, right? So part of what I would encourage you to do is to consider, what are the things that you're doing? What are your compulsions that you're doing to try to get rid of the feeling? Our job with sensorimotor is not to get rid of the feeling. And I know that sounds crazy to a lot of folks who want that feeling to go away. It will go away. I promise you. It will. We know it's going to go away because it comes back. It wasn't there before, and now it is, which means it wasn't there, and now it is. So if we know that it wasn't there, but now it is, that means it's not going to be there again at some point. There isn't a physical sensation, there isn't an emotional experience that you've had that has lasted forever. We go in and out of things, we feel sensations, we have experiences, and we have emotions, and they pass. As bad as you feel, as good as you feel, that's going to change. And I'd say that's for the best, right? So we can rely on that feeling eventually passing. So the question is going to be, what are you, Nicholas, going to do for the time that it's there? Do you want to make that entire time, that hour, about that sensation? Do you want to say, for this hour, I'm going to fight with it? I'm going to put everything on pause. I'm going to turn my attention towards the feeling, and I'm going to try to eliminate it. I'm going to try to rationalize it and make it make sense. I'm going to try to convince myself to stop feeling it. I'm going to try to remind myself of a time that I didn't feel it, to try to bring on that feeling. I'm going to try to say a mantra to make that feeling pass. And there could be a bajillion other things that you might do. But what you're ultimately doing is you're still saying, I'm going to focus on this, and this is going to be my life right now. I don't think that's what you want to do. Because also what you're doing is you're showing your brain that this is something that I like to focus on, right? This is a big deal to me. I enjoy this. This is something that I like to turn my attention towards. I want to spend time on it. So your brain goes, gosh, I guess Nicholas really likes this thought or likes the feeling. I don't know, let's give him more of it. Let's turn his attention more towards it. Let's remind him of when that feeling is there. So when we notice it even a little bit, we get to go, oh, Nicholas, hey, guess what? The tingling in your throat feeling is there. Here, focus on it. It's for you. That's the way our big dumb brains work sometimes, right? So we want to ultimately be spending less time on it. And in the process, showing yourself that you can live your life and sometimes get that distraction of the sensation itself. And we're trying to then disprove that story. The disproving of the story in this sense would be something like showing yourself that you can be in relationship with other people. You can be in that meeting. You can go to class. You can do a podcast. You can give your kids a bath and have that sensation be there. And have that sensation be there because it's there, whether you like it or not. So the other things in your life will get your focus and your attention. So what I want you to catch then is when that feeling is there, what are you doing with it? Are you paying attention to it? Are you fighting it? Are you trying to shut it down? Are you desperately trying to distract yourself in an unhealthy way from that sensation? Or are you noticing that you're distracted by it and going, well, it's here again. Well, I guess it's going to be there. And then you reshift back to the thing that you're doing. And then you eventually get distracted by that thing again because it's pulling your attention. Because remember, you spent a lot of time thinking about this. So you got distracted by it. Do you then go, well, I got distracted by it again. I guess this is my life. Well, I'm going to focus on it now. And then put everything else on hold. I would encourage you to instead keep practicing the shift. We notice it, and we let it go, and we turn. The letting it go doesn't mean it's not there. We're letting go of our responsibility to it, our efforts towards it, our attention paid to it, right? We're just simply shifting and giving our attention and our effort and our focus to things that we value more, right? And this will float for a period of time. And when it's bored with you, it's going to drift away and go do something else. Great. That's what we want to do in the first place. So that's the shift. And that shift is going to happen more than once, I promise you. We do this in regular old meetings. We do this while we're driving. We get distracted and we start thinking about something. We go, oh my gosh, I should focus on this thing, right? I brought up the example before. It's like when Christmas time comes up, I'm going to be thinking a lot about what I can get people because I enjoy doing that. So I'm going to drift off into that sometimes. But sometimes it's inappropriate for me to do that, meaning it's unhelpful for me to do that. If I'm in a session with somebody, I shouldn't be thinking about, it's unhelpful for me to be thinking about what I'm going to get my kids for Christmas. Instead, I go, oh, that would be a good idea. But you know what? I'm talking to this person right now. I need to focus on that. And then my brain goes, yeah, but what about this other thing? I go, we're going to put that on hold for now. I got this person to talk to, and I'm going to do that right now. And that shift happens more than once, right? And what you then show yourself is that you can be present in that you're going to be also distracted. Presence is not an on or an off thing. Enjoyment of life is not an on or an off thing. It's a mixture of connection and distraction. And connection and distraction, and joy and distraction, and joy and frustration, and joy and boredom, right? It's where are we focusing and how are we giving our attention towards it? Now, through that process, and furthermore in that process, you can also, certainly engage with scripting. That can be helpful if you need to, not if you need to, but it can be helpful to write out this story about you never feeling present again. And it's going to feel uncomfortable. And good, that's the point. It's to write out this story and let yourself be in that story of I'm distracted, I'm not present, I'm tortured by this sensation forever. And the more that you read that story, the more you let your brain be in that story, the less it will have an impact on your life. And the more you practice having it be there in life without having to get rid of it or destroy it or answer to it or anything like that. Okay? So we're doing a lot. Now, there are a lot of other things that you can do. Now, you also said the main question that you had was, how can I learn to live with the physical sensations and to take the power and intensity away from them? Well, I've spent the majority of this time talking about how you can live with the sensations. But one of the ways to think about that is we live with the sensations the way we live with everything else that frustrates us in life. Everything else that we are angry at or disappointed with is we do the things that we can and that we stop doing things when we can't. I know that sounds simplistic, but we live alongside, we live in the existential knowledge that it exists, right? This silly example I give is like child trafficking. How do you and I all live with the reality of child trafficking? It's awful. There's no way to reasonably spin this. And by the way, if you're spending time going, actually, Kevin, I don't want to hear it. The answer is always no. It's never okay. It's never okay. I don't feel like I should have to say this, but somehow I feel like I have to say this. Anyways, we live with the reality that it exists, and it sucks. And I'm still going to work. And I'm going to go get pizza because it's Friday and it's movie night for us and the kids. That's what I'm doing. And I hate the reality that child trafficking exists. We all do this. For you, Nicholas, it's going to be the reality that this feeling, your brain sometimes focuses on this feeling, and sometimes you get that shortness of breath. And that sucks. Is it the same as child trafficking? Obviously not. For the person out there who's going, Kevin's making an equation, it's no, I'm not. These are all things that suck. And I'm sorry that you have to experience this. And it's that thing that sucks for you. And I have things that suck for me, and everyone else out there who have things that suck for them. So how do we learn to live alongside of it? Is that we make space for things that suck. And we say it's there. And we make peace with it by letting it be there, and by acknowledging that it is a feeling, it is a thought, it is a sensation, it is an experience that we don't like or love, but we're going to leave as part of it. And we live alongside of it by not making it the focus of our life, by not making it the most important thing in our life. What else is going to be the important thing for you, Nicholas? Make that the most important thing. In each of those moments, it's there, and we shift. And then you notice, are you fighting against it? Are you giving it attention and energy by fighting against it, by trying to suppress it, meaning by trying to intentionally and effortfully shove it down? Are you trying to explain it away? Are you trying to do some sort of magic trick to make it go away? Because all of that is giving it attention. It's giving it that power and energy. Now, another thing that I think can be helpful, and this isn't the same as trying to habituate to the feeling, but we're trying to practice having the feeling without trying to get rid of it, explain it away, make it less. Instead, we're saying, this is going to be a feeling that's part of my life, so I'm going to treat it as something that can be part of my life. Now, what's coming to mind for me would be an interoceptive exposure, and this is an exposure to a physical sensation and experience, and practicing having it without engaging with compulsion to try to eliminate it, without trying to convince yourself that it's okay, and without doing it with the expectation that you won't feel it. Okay, so some of these might be the practice of feeling dizzy. Sometimes we feel dizzy, particularly around panic attacks or whatever it might be, and that can be a big triggering point for somebody. So there are interoceptive exposures for that, and we can do this. And John Abramowitz, I saw this. I was in a lecture from him at one IOCDF, and he did this and had everybody else do it. So I'm going to make everybody do it. So basically, you turn your head all the way to the left, and you go all the way to the right as far as you can. Don't go crazy and try to crane your neck and hurt yourself. And you go back and you basically do that really fast. Do this like this. If you're on YouTube, you can watch me. Oh my God, okay, I can't do it. But you do it like 30 times. I get so dizzy so fast. And you let yourself feel that. And you notice what it feels like. What does it feel like in your head? What does it feel like in your neck? What does it feel like everywhere else in your body? What thoughts or mental images pop up as that's happening? And you just notice that. And you notice also the intensity starts to subside as you just sit there and observe. And then when it subsides down to a certain point, you do it again. So for you, Nicholas, it might be you're going to intentionally get that pins and needles. And I don't know exactly how to get that for you. Well, what was coming up for me was kind of like taking if you have a massage gun or something like that, or if you have one of those silly razors from back in the day that you press the button and it shook because it was supposed to, I don't know, help you shave better. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Old people know what I'm talking. Point is, you put that on your neck. And you just go all right, I'm going to get used to this feeling. Zzz, and it just kind of buzzes you. And it's going to feel weird. And it's then good. Now, I don't know if that's going to activate that same feeling, if it's going to kind of feel similar or different. I would not advise you shove it down your windpipe so you can feel it inside you. But I hope I don't have to say that. But I feel like I also have to say that. Anyways, again, so you can practice doing that. Think about other things that might activate that, right? So the shallow breathing, it might be like taking a belt and kind of tightening it around your kind of rib cage to prevent yourself from getting a full breath. Don't go crazy and wrench it down so that you can't breathe. Make it so it feels like you have to take a shallow breath. And you're kind of saying, I'm going to sit here and experience the shallow breath. And it's going to be annoying, but I'm not going to engage. I'm going to do this so that I can practice not engaging in compulsions. So it's just there. Now, it might continually and always be annoying. It might never become comfortable. You might never become unhappy with it, right? but you're saying it can be here because it is here, but I don't need to do anything about it. It's an unwanted feeling state, and I'm going to deal with it, and it's going to pass. We do that with bad weather. It's way too cold. It's way too hot. It's way too windy. We go, yeah, it sucks. And it's going to pass because winter's coming or summer's coming or whatever it might be. And that weather will change and this feeling will change. So we're practicing having that sensation. And, you can do that. You do that a couple of times a day. And over time, and talk to your therapist about this, but over time, you'll start to make space for it. And you'll start to learn that you can have that feeling and that you can shift and it can just simply be part of your life. So that's all I'm going to yammer on about. Nicholas, thank you so much for this, Eden, and thank you so much for sharing your experience with Casadastraphobia. So if you have anything that you'd want to add to this, shoot me an email over at Fearcast Podcast. You can also message me over at Instagram. But until next time, everybody, take a risk, challenge yourself, and don't take your brain too seriously. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Fearcast. If you would like your question answered on a future episode, please click on the Submit a Question link at fearcastpodcast.com. If you would like your question answered sooner, please send me a recording of your question to questions@fearcastpodcast.com or by sending me an audio message through Instagram by DMing me at fearcastpodcast on Instagram. If you like the Fearcast, please write a review on your podcast platform of choice. Please remember that the Fearcast is not a substitute for psychotherapy. If you need a little bit of help in your recovery, please go over to fearcastpodcast.com and click on the Find Help link, and there's going to be some information for you there. So until next time, take a risk, challenge yourself, and don't take your brain too seriously. Bye.